Hello and welcome to another motorcycling video. I'm off on a ride to find a place to start my morning run, so I thought I'd talk about some tips to do with riding the Spyder. I think the first thing to mention is that the Spyder, in all of its configurations, with the exception of the Riker 600, is not learner legal in Australia. So you cannot ride any version of the Can-Am Spyder. You can ride the Riker 600 on a learner's permit. It's LAMS approved, but all the other bikes, the Riker 900 and all the Can-Am Spyders, are not learner LAMS approved. So you obviously can't ride them while you're on a learner's permit. Now, I haven't ridden a Riker, but I imagine that since the geometry and the setup is pretty similar to the Spyder, that the riding experience would be very similar, and some of the skills that you have for riding the Spyder would be translatable to riding the Riker. Now, the first thing to note when you get on the Spyder is that there are no levers on the handlebars. There's no clutch and there's no front brake. Now, some of the earlier versions before the model I have, which is a 2012, some of them had a manual option and they did have a clutch, but I think since about 2014, when the engine size was increased from 1000 to 1330, they all went from being manual to the semi-automatic, which is a dual clutch setup. So you have a shifter with your left thumb and a change down option with your left pointer finger, or index finger I think it's called, that's your first finger, but there's no clutch and there's no brake lever. There is only one brake pedal, and that is on the right hand side. There are discs on each front wheel and a disc on the back, and because the Spyder has ABS and EBD, electronic brake distribution, it obviously distributes the brake force necessary between each of the three wheels in order to bring the bike to a safe stop. You don't have the same effect of the weight all being transferred forward, or it still happens, but not to the same extent as you would have on a two-wheel bike where all the weight is transferred over the front wheel and the front forks dip, because the Spyder rather has independent suspension and the wheels are almost as far apart as a small hatch. So when you get on the bike, don't be looking for those levers because they're not there. When you're riding the bike, I think the best piece of advice I can give you is to relax, and that is, be careful, hold your right hand especially, which obviously manages the throttle, hold it as relaxed as you possibly can. When you're out on the open road, use the cruise control, but when you're in urban environments where it's not practical to use the cruise control, just try to relax your grip, because if you get that grip of death, you're going to end up with pain in your shoulder and in your shoulder blade, and then you're going to end up with discomfort in your lower back. It's all going to end up uncomfortable, and all of that discomfort can be put down to having the the grip of death. Now, I have seen, and I have used them myself occasionally on two-wheel bikes, palm rests or throttle rests, or they've got a variety of names and they come in a variety of shapes and sizes. And the idea is that you can rest your palm on this piece of plastic that clips over the throttle and it holds the throttle open. It's not a mechanical cruise control or a throttle lock. It's just a way of resting your palm on this piece of plastic and therefore relaxing your grip so that you don't have that grip of death on the right hand side. Now, all of the next bit I'm going to say relates to Australia, and you have to reverse it if you drive on the other side of the road. So when you are making a right hand turn in Australia, you're going to make a full 90-degree turn, and so what you need to do is move slightly forward on the seat and lean in the direction of the turn that you're making and turn your head fully in the direction that you want the bike to go. Because the motorcycle, it is a motorcycle, and because it's a motorcycle that does not lean and it has independent suspension, you can't lean it around a bend or around a corner, and you cannot counter steer it. You have to lean yourself in the direction of the bike, and you do that first of all to make the bike go where you want it to go, even though it has dynamic power steering, but also because there's a force. I'm not sure what the physicists will tell you the proper name for it, but there's a force that is equal and opposite to your turning right that tends to push you on the seat back and to the left. So to counteract that, you've got to lean forward and to the right. Now, how much you lean will depend on how sharp the turn is, and you will get used to the degree of lean, and you probably won't lean quite as much once you get used to riding the bike as you do when you first get on it. When you're turning left, the setup is exactly the same, but because we ride on the left-hand side of the road here in Australia and drive on the left-hand side of the road, when you're making a left-hand turn, you don't always make a full 90-degree turn. So you don't need to lean your body forward as much, and you don't need to lean in the direction of the turn as much. That's in part, as I said, because you ride on the left-hand side of the road, and also because of the camber of the road, which is sort of down and to the left anyway. The other part of that is that when you make a right-hand turn, for example, you need to push gently with your left arm, push gently with your left arm in the direction of the turn you're taking, which is to the right, obviously, and pull just as gently with your right hand. So you're pulling the right side of the handlebar towards you, and you're pushing the left side of the handlebar towards the right in the direction of the turn. Now, you only need to do those things reasonably gently because, as I said, the bike has dynamic power steering, and so the steering is quite light, and once you start turning the bike in that direction, it'll want to go there of its own, almost of its own accord. You'll notice when you're making a right-hand turn or going at 270 degrees on a roundabout that all of those things that I've just said apply, probably a little bit more so. Now, the other thing to do is when you can, as I said, when you're out on the open road, if you can, use the cruise control. I suggest you use that because, first of all, you're not going to get in trouble with your constabulary for speeding if you have the speed locked at, say, 100. You're going to get better fuel economy, but also it gives you a chance to at least relax your grip on the right-hand side, and maybe even occasionally take your hand off the steering, off the bars. Now, I'm not suggesting you ride no hands, but you can, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but you can almost steer these things one finger once they're on the road and going straight. But if you relax your grip and you've got your cruise control on, then you're going to find that grip of death and the pain in your, first of all, bicep and then up into your shoulder and your shoulder blade is lessened. Because this the Spyder, all the Spyders now, and the Can-Am, the Rikers have a CVT transmission, that is CV, constantly variable transmission, so it sort of is a little bit more seamless than the Spyder transmission, which is now a semi-automatic transmission. And by that I mean you have to physically use your thumb to press the paddle to change from first to second and so forth, but to change down, you have two options. You can use a little switch that's activated by your pointer finger, or you can just close the throttle, and as the bike slows down, it will realise that it's slowing down and will automatically change down for you, and it will match the revs. Now, the disadvantage of doing it that automatically is that there is no way for the driver of the car behind you, especially if they're not paying attention because they're distracted by their infotainment screen, there is no way for that driver to know that you are slowing down because you're basically using engine braking. So what I suggest you do is that even if you allow the bike to change down by itself, and I often do, is that I make sure that I put my foot on the brake pedal and I just tap it once or twice so that the brake lights will come on and the person that's behind me will know that I'm slowing down. If you have a car with adaptive cruise control, when the vehicle senses the car in front of it is slowing down and therefore slows your car down, the brake lights come on. Now, you don't know that because you're in the passenger, you're in the driver's seat inside the car, but the driver behind you sees those brake lights coming on and knows that you are changing down, or it's slowing down rather. Most motorcycles, even the ones that have cruise control like the Spyder, do not have adaptive cruise control, so they don't have that facility. So in order to let the driver of the vehicle behind you know that you are changing gears and slowing down, make sure you put your foot on the brake lever and just tap it once or twice. Now, the same thing would apply if you were riding a two-wheeler. If you had cruise control, for example, the Kawasaki Vulcan Voyager that I had before I had the Spyder, it had cruise control. It was deactivated by either tapping the brake pedal or the brake lever, or by pulling the clutch in and changing down. But pulling in the clutch and changing down didn't activate the brake light. So if you disengage the cruise control, still give the front brake lever a bit of a squeeze so the brake lights come on, or tap the brake pedal with your foot so the brake lights come on and the driver behind you knows that you are slowing down. Well, there are some tips that I hope are useful for learning how to ride the Spyder. I hope I have some, or I'll try and have some more in the next video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the commentary and the scenery, and I'll talk to you again shortly.